The cover of the book tells us of the kind of male gaze. As we are talking about that, like none of these contemporary writings are shy away from being feeding into populism, participating in stereotypes. So one can see directly in front that there is a certain kind of a male gaze that is there, and the colors suggest a certain kind of lightness, certain kind of vibrancy, and this becomes clear when one starts reading the novel itself. So if you look at it, the novel starts in the house of Justice L.N. Thakur, and we are introduced to Justice and his family members. We are told, and then that male gaze becomes very prominent if you look at the phrasing itself, called they lived close to modern school Barakhamba, and eager for sighting of Judge Saab's true treasure, 5 delectable daughters. The phrasing of delectable itself tells you a bit more about the way that the novel positions its gaze. And it will be important, as I said in the beginning, just by looking at the cover itself, that gaze is there throughout the novel itself, which gives us a very stereotypical look or stereotypical representation of women, a certain kind of objectification. But then that objectification is also extended to the male figures, especially towards Dylan, the other protagonist of the novel itself. So you can see a certain participation in stereotyping, and also a extension, a certain kind of a push towards a newer territory where you are objectifying not only women but also men. But we start with this idea of how the male gaze is prominent, but also one of the major things that will happen, and we'll focus it on towards the end of the lecture, that how the male gaze is also critiqued. The male gaze is constantly critiqued, especially in the figure of the youngest daughter of Judge Thakur, Ishwari. And we'll have a look at Ishwari's character in detail, which will tell us a bit more about the progressive politics of Chauhan also. So, if on one hand you see a very stereotypical objectification, on the other hand you also see a certain kind of questioning. What was alerted to us in terms of ideological heterogeneity of contemporary writings. Surveying his garden in the evening, inhaling the scent of the wet earth and desi gulab, secure in the knowledge that wife and girls are safe within, the judge is often heard to observe that the word paradise evolved from the Persian peri-diza, which simply put means walled garden. You can see a specific example, and then this is one of the first examples of vernacularization. Vernacularization of English, that there is no italics here. And we'll come to talk about it when we start talking about vernacularization of English, a bit more about it. But then you will see, just to briefly comment on it, that you will see that there is no italics here. This is not like chutneyfication, therefore, because you see in the same line, without pausing, desi gulab is used, which is, the assumption is that you don't need a note or a glossary for it or an italics for it, because the Indian reader will know what exactly is being meant here. So you see a certain assumption towards the readership, that the readership is not in the West, who will need a cultural context for it. If you compare it to, for example, when Mr. Pizzada came to dine, those kinds of examples, you will see a marked difference from it. Next door stands the house of Justice Lakshmi Narayan's younger brother, identical in every respect but somewhat shabbier. But then Ashok Narayan Thakur has only one son and no daughters to lavish their attention on either house or garden. Three of those paragons are now settled, and only 23-year-old Debjani and 17-year-old Ishwari remain at home. The three marriages, truth be told, have depleted the judge's purse more than the renovation of the house has, but that is something that he does not like brought up. A, B, C may feel guilty, he cautions, but D and E will definitely feel shortchanged. But really, Mamtaji, I have no idea how we will give this younger brigade a decent send-off. At which Mrs. Mamta Thakur pats his bony shoulder and directs his attention to how thickly Kamini is blossoming along the boundary wall. A lifetime spent with meticulously organized legal files and court libraries has moved the judge to name his daughters Anjini, Binodini, Chandralekha, Debjani and Ishwari. So you can see A, B, C, D, E. So kind of a quirky father figure, a decision that has earned him a reputation of eccentricity he does not quite deserve. It has caused his daughters to harbor a kind of mild but lingering grouse against him. So they have said that like it's almost like we are housing blocks of Chittaranjan Park. It is so dehumanizing. BJ, that's how Mr. Bumble named orphans in Oliver Twist. One of the things that you will constantly see, and this is again an example of it, that the people who are participant in it have access to the world, have access to global capital, where they know texts by canonical writers like Oliver Twist, Dickens and others are also household names, much like Chittaranjan Park. So you can see a certain kind of vernacularization of English, vernacularization in terms of making Dickens a household name, vernacularization in the same way that of making the space appear as universal, in the sense that everyone seems to probably will know Chittaranjan Park, which is a locality in Delhi itself. And so in that way you see an unashamed portrayal of their own lives, of not wanting to explain a bit more, the confidence in readers that they have, that okay, the reader will know what we are talking about in that sense. So the characters are introduced, and we are told that according to an astrologer, Devjani stars were in deep state known as Suptavastha. Again, you see no italics. This is what was causing her to walk into walls, forget to dilute the bucket of hot water. Her stars would remain in Suptavastha until she turned 23, and then he had snapped his fingers, his eyes glowing behind rather a spiffy cherry spectacle. She would awaken to fortune, fertility and fame. That her life will change, and which was going to happen as she was going to be on DD, and she was going to be a news reader, and then her life will change forever. She goes on to become they go on to drop her at the news room itself, and then in the next chapter, which will move to, we meet the other character, that is Mr. Dylan Singh Shekhawat, who is a investigating journalist with a newspaper, one of the leading newspapers. Dylan Singh Shekhawat, sprawled in his office chair, hammering away at the typewriter with the back of sublime view of Ballad estate bathed in sunshine below, doesn't bother to look up. He's part of a newsroom, and he writes columns, and he's given to work for work for the newspaper, and we are told Dylan Singh Shekhawat is quite the establishment's darling. Even Bade Papaji, Purushottam Ori, Varun's grandfather and a founder of India Post, famously known as the fat old man of Indian publishing, has a soft spot for him. He says Shekhawat reminds him of himself in his prime. As Bade Papaji now resembles a squat, gnarled, chubby hairball, this seems unlikely, but as his prime was so very long in a Lahori village so very far away, there is no photographic evidence to disprove his claim. So we are told about two characters, and again you can see a heterogeneous discourse is introduced, that we are told about partition. That the grand old man of Indian publishing actually came from Lahore, from the other side of the border. So you can see many heterogeneous discourses already interacting with each other. And as we'll know, Dylan, what sets the ball rolling is that Dylan writes a scathing piece on Debjani's first show on Doordarshan, makes very acerbic remarks about her appearance. It goes like, one last piece of advice to Miss Dolly Dotted Chin: flutter those lashes, you look little less plastic at the end. At the moment, the combination of your scrapped back hair and that unwinking basilisk gaze is frankly scary. Or maybe that's just my grandmother, because my grandmother told me never to trust a person who does not blink. So kind of a very snarky comment that is made on her, and that sets them together in the way that their fortunes come to be intersected and interlaced with each other. Now from here on, the novel takes a very interesting route, where strategically each time discourses of love and politics come together, they seem to be separated, like both the protagonists. So if one chapter is about the growing love relationship, the second chapter will be about politics, about the investigation into 1984 that is carried out by Dylan. So you will have love and politics constantly oscillating and fleeting in and out of the novel and in and out of their lives itself. So if one discourse becomes heavy, the other discourse comes in to compensate, but at the end, love triumphs. A very good example of this we'll see in this page. Before this, the discussion was on about Dylan's marriage and how Dylan is interested in Debjani. And you can see that like the love is brewing. Whatever she says, suddenly feels, can't I ever come to Delhi without you guys trying to arrange my marriage, like his parents trying to arrange for his marriage. I don't have time for this, and I'll be damned if I'm interested and if she isn't interested. And the moment this discourse gets done, we see Dylan spends the next 3 days digging up the whereabouts of 10 civil service officers who were present at Motla's cancer briefing. We're talking about a politician who was instrumental, as the novel tells us, in the 84 riots itself, who took advantage of a sensitive situation and exploited it to create the riots to kill innocent people. His name is Hardik Motla, and that's what he's investigating. That's what Dylan is investigating. So we are told that like he looks up and digs up the civil service records. Most of them have been transferred outside Delhi. 3 are posted abroad. Every single one he discovers after 3 days of spade work has been promoted, except one who has shunted sideways and transferred to the wilds of rural Karnataka. Bingo, Dylan thinks and sets about trying to get hold of his phone number. When he gets home hungry but energized, the mother serves him cold shoulder for dinner, while his father makes it a point to bring up the Thakurs, mentioning how the judge is sulking, how Mrs. Mamta has inquired after him, and how there are shadows as purple as jamun under Devjani's eyes, but Dylan does not want to think about Devjani's eyes. So you can see love and politics constantly being spectral presences in each other's discourse. And this is markedly different, as we were talking about, markedly different from the way Austen's novel was. Austen's novel did not explicitly invest so much energy in politics, in the contemporary politics of Britain. Neither did the characters talk so much about events related to history. And this is not the only instance. We'll see a couple more instances where you'll see how Chauhan repeatedly brings out the collusion of the state, the government with media industry to silence the crimes that have been committed against innocent human beings who lost their lives in the riot itself. So you can see that politics is not just a backdrop here. Politics seems to be an active agent, uh, if only to facilitate love between these two characters, Dylan and Debjani. So, if we look at next pages, one sees more examples of it. Again, they are Dylan and Devjani are in a discussion. She glares at him, he glares back. A machine ka thanda pani cart hovers over to them, hopefully. Again, vernacularization. No explanation. What is machine ka thanda pani? It's those old, again, 1990s kind of archival things that are also still present around Delhi, where you will have a cart, push cart, which serves you cold water, chilled water. That's what machine ka thanda pani, a very Hindi phrase, a longish phrase, which makes its presence in an English sentence. Almost half of the English sentence is Hindi, without explanation, without glossary, just sits there. And we'll come back to it in a bit, but these are some of the markers that we need to remember in terms of thinking about the heterogeneity of contemporary writing itself. So, machine ka thanda pani cart hovers next to them, hopefully. I am not into friendship that lead nowhere, Dylan. She says at last. There is no shy faltering over his name now. He notices with a pang, no looking at shirt collar instead of his eyes. I told you I don't flirt. So we have a discourse around love, we have a discourse around desire, where she's telling him what what she likes, what she doesn't like, what kind of relationship she is looking forward to, a certain kind of assertion that is very that's quite impressive and opens up space in terms of gender equations. And then Dylan replies, I am not into petty mouthpieces who read out news without thinking twice about what they are reading. He snaps back. How could you smile after saying that the SIC has cleared Hardik Motla of all charges? How could you? Who's Hardik Motla? Devjani falters. Dylan makes a hasty movement towards her, his eyes blazing with such fury that for a moment she almost is scared. Then he steps back, taking a deep breath, and slides his hand into the pocket of his jeans. Never mind, leave it. Look, I have a lot of work to do. Do you know? A lot. Devjani shrugs. So go do it. Oh, I am going to. He assures her, blocking her path, rooted to the road. She stares him almost like for an entire minute, but all he does is stare back like he is incapable of moving. People inside the All India Radio building start to nudge and point. Finally, Devjani makes an infuriated little noise, steps around him, walks away, blinking back tears, furious with herself, swearing she will never ever speak to him again. You can see how love and politics, as I was saying, how they come to intersect with each other. You can see that news, that what he charges her of, that how could she just read the news, and knowing the gravity of the news, how could she be so naive to smile after that? It almost seems inhuman to Dylan that the news of 84 does not pain her. So in that sense, love does not become a very interiorized emotion. It's a public emotion here, that the public face of her, in a sense, comes to harp on their personal relationship, and that's quite a important theme in the entire novel itself, because you will see that love and politics constantly intersect, and it will be like if DD or the news reading itself, the space of the public, a space of politics in that sense, becomes the space where these kinds of misreadings happen, these kinds of misunderstandings happen, this which leads to their separation. This will also be the space which will allow them to come together. This will also be the space that will bring love together for them. So in a way, you will see that love and politics constantly go hand in hand in the novel, and they keep these spaces not so insulated. So you will have love impinging on the space of politics, and then that's how they come together, through misunderstandings, through these misreadings of each other, because Dylan judges Devjani based on her public face, and similarly Devjani fails to understand the circumstances under which this kind of acerbic comments that we read before were written about her by Dylan. So that kind of leads to a separation, a break between them, the misunderstanding that happens. But it also means that love and politics are inseparable in this novel, which is a marked departure from the Austinian world itself.